Hello, my name's Thomas Gross, and I'm here to discuss the ism of magic realism. Now, from what I understand, we all love fantasy. We all love ghost stories. Well, most of us. Magic realism is a style of fiction that sets stories in the everyday world, such as living in New York or Japan, while incorporating strange, unbelievable details as everyday life, such as the anime My Neighbor Totoro. To put simply, that's magic realism. Now to the history. The history of magic realism can be dated back as far as ancient Greece, referenced by A.W.H. Atkins in Greek mythology. Now to the Greeks, that was everyday life for them. Folklore, myths, it was all real to them due to their belief system. Later, it was discovered by Latin American authors, who used this technique to publish their books and get famous, rich, or possibly to simply express what's going on in their imaginative mind. Originally, the term magic realism was introduced by Franz Roh, a German art critic, in 1925. When Roh coined the term, he meant it to create an art category that strayed from the statistic guidelines. But the term did not meet an artistic move until the 1940s in Latin America, and the Caribbean. Many famous artists used magic realism in their work. Then authors started this technique for their stories. According to Kinsley McKinney on Vox.com, some known authors like Gabriel Garcia Marquez and others were famous mostly because of the published books that were inspired by internal and external sources, such as imagination, comics, folklore, and myths. Thus, the genre magic realism was adapted for literature. Magic realism has been used through the ages for the enjoyment of readers and listeners. More currently, magic realism was used in America. We see examples of it in our folklore, such as Paul Bunyan or Pecos Bill, mentioned in sophiestale.com. Another example of an American writer who used magic realism was Edgar Allan Poe, described in Magical Realism in Literature. He used it to create objects or people that have their iconic, horrific, and otherworldly characteristics. If you want to read something to keep you up at night, I particularly recommend the story The Fall of the House of Usher. Talk about a ghost story. The use of magic realism is still used to this day. Some movies and TV shows are based on magic realism, such as Edward Scissorhands, Groundhog Day, and the Netflix original movie Bright, or the television show Pushing Daisies. And it's just like any other day to the bystanders in the stories. I am also an example of a magical realism writer. I love folklore and myths and the stories that come with them. I like to use magic realism in my writing and base my creations on myths and folklore. There are many authors today who use magic realism in their work. The author Neil Gaiman is especially talented at creating stories where gods, monsters, and magic commingle with everyday life, as he did with his books The Ocean at the End of the Lane and American Gods. What I'm trying to say is anyone and everyone can use magic realism to tell non-believable yet entertaining stories from outside sources and the imaginative mind alone. Some stories can be beautiful, some action-packed, and some can be terrifying. But what's not to love about a good ghost story, especially this coming month? Ghost stories started with superstition, mostly to warn and terrify us. But nowadays it's simply to entertain and give us goosebumps. This type of writing appeals to horror fanatics, especially to teens and goth enthusiasts. Magic realism will continue in the future, simply because it's such an enjoyable type of literature. Thank you for listening. This is Thomas Gross. Thank you.